want my VA to do bookkeeping, but I'm so scared.
At the end of the day, they're people. You're building that relationship to become comfortable.
The most important thing is making that first step.
If you ignore your books, bad things happen.
And I have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Nelisa Lee.
How am I making all this money, but I don't see the money in my bank account?
Nelisa, thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great and just really excited to be here.
That's awesome. Nelisa, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
I am a CPA and a full-time real estate investor, and I'm the founder of Seeds Courses, which basically teaches accounting to real estate investors. I also do a little bit of consulting work if clients need more specific help with their accounting. So before I was an investor, I actually was a preschool teacher, and that was when I learned about my love for teaching. So the one thing with teaching preschool was that I realized that I didn't own the business, and that was something that I knew that I was passionate about and that I wanted to learn more about. So I actually ended up going back to school for business, which is where I learned accounting and became a CPA and kind of ended up on that CPA career path.
That's very good. That's awesome. Now, I know you through a common friend of ours, and we never actually met face to face, but I reached out to her. I said, hey, I am hiring virtual assistants, and I have a lot of people asking me questions about how they can use virtual assistants for, different bookkeeping roles. And especially because the U.S. The bookkeeping way, or the laws are a little bit different than what they are in their countries. So people ask me, like, will my virtual assistant know exactly what I expect of them? How do I do this? So I reached out to our friend and I said, I know you're in bookkeeping, I know you're in accounting, do you have a course, do you have something like that? And she said, I don't, but I can recommend you someone very good. So that's how you and I got connected, and then we started talking, and it was just like an instant spark. I was like, oh my gosh, she's like, there's so much worth coming from you and trust, and so I was like, I would love to do something with her, and I'm so excited that I have you on my show. Back then we didn't even think that we would record an episode, but I'm so excited to have you here.
It is funny how who you meet and who you know makes introductions to people that you have no idea how it's going to impact your business. So I was very excited as well once we made that connection. So
all right, so let's get back to the beginning. Let's talk about, so you recently became a CPA, but you've been you did real estate before that, right?
So I was a CPA before I went into real estate.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And so I kind of was on the CPA career path where I was bouncing around from job to job, and I really loved accounting, and I loved learning about businesses and how they operated and that piece to accounting. But it was, again, that like needing to be my own business owner. I wanted to be able to, be the one making the ultimate decisions and be the one kind of driving that process. So my husband is the one who introduced me to real estate. And it started with literally listening to a podcast episode. So you never know what one podcast will do to your life. Mm-hmm. So he recommended I listen to this episode, and it was literally about a teacher who ended up transitioning into real estate. And so, of course, coming from that teaching background, that story really resonated with me. And so I was like, yeah, let's do this. Like, I'm ready to go. And so, no joke, like a couple weeks later, we were under contract to buy our first rental property. So we just kind of dove right in as soon as we made the decision. So,
did your husband have any experience in real estate, or were you absolute beginners?
We had no experience. Neither. We hadn't even bought our own personal residence yet when we bought our first rental property. So we had never gone through any sort of closing a transaction. So it was all very new, but he had been studying, the market, learning different things, reading books, listening to all the podcasts. He was basically doing all the research, and all it took was one episode for me to be like, yep, this is it. Let's do it.
So you started with one. What year was that?
That was back in probably 2016, maybe. We became full-time real estate investors in 2019, a couple years later. So
So, so between 2016 and 2019, you were still juggling your job and real estate. It was more like a side gig, like a hobby.
Exactly. Yep. I was still working as a CPA, tons of hours, and just really wanting to get to that other side where I could just, get into the real estate and be there full time. So.
And what are you now? How many do you primarily focus on rentals, or what do you invest in?
So our primary focus right now is flipping and a little bit more wholesaling. We do have a rental portfolio, so we have, about 50 properties right now that we are holding on to, but it just kind of depends on what comes through our pipeline, because we do a lot of direct to seller marketing. So if something comes through and we look at it and we're like, this is a better rental property, then we might keep something. But our main focus right now with the way the market is just flipping and wholesaling.
And do you primarily invest in one state, or are you nationwide?
All in Northeast Florida. So we used to have investments in Georgia, and we had some in Tallahassee, Florida, which is where my husband and I both went to college, but we have since now put everything into Northeast Florida. It's our backyard. We know it well, and we wanted to kind of consolidate. So
Florida is not the easiest market, right? It's very competitive, and weather-wise, it's risky. But what's it like for you?
It's funny because Jacksonville is a huge city, which is like our primary area. We invest in all the surrounding counties as well, because Jacksonville is just a huge area. But it's very competitive, but it's also very collaborative. I found that a lot of the investors who are doing a lot of volume and, just known in the community, everyone works together. So we have done deals with a lot of people. It's not just ourselves. We, are constantly JVing with people, and it's a different community here. I love it. So how
do you find your deals? Is it mostly JVing? Or what's the marketing?
So mostly from direct to seller marketing. So we do, direct mail. We have an online presence where homeowners can find us through, SEO and PPC. And then, of course, just networking. So lots of other wholesalers, lots of realtors, just people who we've worked with in the past, who know other homeowners who might be going through similar situation that they, recommend us. So kind of just, over time, you start to get business from all different sorts of places. So
yeah, I have a very good friend who is amazing at networking, and he's getting a lot of his deals through networking. And he always says, just talk about what you do. Whoever you meet, just talk about what you do, because you never know where the next deal may come from. He goes to church, people know about what he does. In his community, people know about what he does. So it's don't just hold the cards close to your chest. Just you never know where the next deal comes from, right?
Exactly. You really never know. And yeah, just getting out there, because people don't know unless you tell them. If you're looking for a very specific investment, tell them. I remember our very first property we ever bought to flip. We were we're looking in this specific area of Jacksonville. We knew we wanted it very close to home. We told them exactly, this is what our price point is. This is exactly what we're looking for. And no joke, a couple weeks later, a wholesaler came to us and was like, hey, I found something, I think this fits the bill. And we were we want it right now. So yeah, you just never know. Networking and telling people, what you do is so important.
Yeah. When you had your first deal, was there any doubt or any I don't know, we're beginners. What if we make a mistake? Because I feel like a lot of this fear is holding a lot of people back. And you can have analysis paralysis. You can, the more you educate yourself, the more podcasts you listen to, the more books you read, the more stuck you might feel sometimes, because there's different ways to invest in real estate. The most important thing is making that first step. But what did it feel like for you? What was going on inside your mind and inside your heart when you took that first step?
I think at that point we were just so ready. And for me, I wasn't doing it alone. I was doing it with my husband. So we kind of had each other and I almost feel like we probably didn't share just how scared we were, because, neither one of you wants to be the person who's all right, are we sure about this?
Yeah.
So I think for us, it was just having unwavering faith, because at the end of the day, what's the worst thing that could happen? You lose money, right? Well, okay. Like if you lose money, what have you gained from it? You've gained experience, you've gained knowledge. Like people pay for education. Like learn from that, learn a whole lot more than your loss, and you'll be fine. You just have to keep going, take that next step and not be afraid that just because you maybe didn't do as well on a certain deal or you lost, money on this one, like you're not going to lose on every single one if you keep going and you get better and you learn from it. I think that's the biggest piece is like, why did it go wrong? Or, how could it have been better? And making sure you really assess those things. That's what's going to take the fear away is just doing,
This is very
because then you don't have time to think about the scared. You're taking action.
That's right. But it's normal to have these feelings, but you will never be 100% doubt free. You just learn through experience. Just take that leap, right? Just
absolutely
commit.
Absolutely.
And I know exactly what you said. Like if your husband asked, or if he didn't ask you, like, "Hey, are you sure about this?" Because I'm trying to think if we have a big decision. If my husband asks me, "Hey, you sure we want to do this?" I'd be like, if something goes wrong, the blame is going to be on me, right? Because I said yes, right. I'm sure. So it's like, no, that's probably the best way. Like just commit and get it done. Just commit to it.
I'm not a parent yet, but I feel like that's probably what people feel when they have kids are like, all right, are we doing this? Or are we doing this? Like, it's like, it's going to be scary no matter when you do it, no matter how prepared you think you are or not. Like, it's the same thing. Entrepreneurship or like investing or anything that's outside of that normal, your comfort zone is going to be uncomfortable. You just have to get around people who are doing it, and that will help take you out of that mindset of it being so scary. Like, I think that was one of the biggest things for us is, especially in the beginning, networking with so many people who were full-time investors. And we're like, oh, wow, there's tons of people out there doing this. Like, if they can do it, I certainly can figure this out too. Like, it won't be pretty, but let's go. So I definitely think that also helps for sure.
I love this. So now let's talk about your team. You went in this full-time 2019. How big is your team right now? How many people do you operate with?
We keep a very small team. It's just how we like to operate. We're much more like a family than a business or company. Like it's just me and my husband. We have an operations manager in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then we have 2 virtual assistants that are both out of the Philippines. And obviously we work with a lot more people. So like the title company, our contractors, and, different vendors, which are just an extension of our team. We have a property management company that we work with a bunch of different people to help manage our rentals. So even though our core team is very small, it doesn't feel that way because we work with so many different people who are really just, like I said, extensions of our team. So
awesome. And how long have the virtual assistants been with you?
So one of them has been with us since the very beginning. I'll be honest, when we hired him, we didn't even have a role for him. We didn't know what we were going to be doing. It was a referral from another investor who was like, hey, do you guys need a virtual assistant? I don't have a need for this one anymore, but he's really, really good. And we were like, we should just get one because this is what you do. Everyone says you need a VA, especially with a real estate investing business. So we were like, okay, let's hire him. So we went through the interview process. We're like, he's a great culture fit. Like we really hit it off. In the very beginning, we had him doing work that was just way below what he was capable of. And he was willing to do it all. And we were like, that's the type of person we needed who was, knew that there was opportunity to grow and to be able to do more and become more skilled. But he was with us through, like I said, from the very beginning. Our other VA has been with us for almost 2 years. And she also came as a referral from him. So it's worked out for us that way. So
yeah, this is what I always say. Like if we have good VAs before, because we hire virtual assistants, but before we reach out or before we cast the net to find more people, we reach out to the best VAs and like, do you know anyone who is looking for a job, anyone who's as good as you. And the reason we go to them is because birds of a feather, they flock together, right? And they know, like they would hang out with people who are just also very good, or at least they understand the standards of what the other person needs to have or needs to be like. So they would recommend only someone that they themselves could see, could see themselves in. So
right.
That's very important.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because it's a reflection of them too. It's like if someone were to ask you for a recommendation, you're not going to give them a bad recommendation because that's going to reflect poorly on you. You want to make sure that you're giving them, the best, like what you would want for yourself. So yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you use your VAs for? What responsibilities do they have?
So one of our VAs is primarily like data management. She's scraping records and making sure all of our data management in the system is up to date and current. She also does a lot of stuff for our rental portfolio, more administrative, like keeping track of leases and our rent roll and stuff like that. So she's much more administrative. And then our other VA is primarily bookkeeping. So he doesn't only do bookkeeping, he does a lot of reporting as well. So making sure that we're getting our reports on a monthly basis or weekly basis or whenever we've set up those occurrences to be. So he's very much making sure that, he's performing all the reconciliations for our accounts to make sure that all of our financials are complete and accurate. So he's a huge piece to that part of our business. And that's not where he started. He started with a lot of administrative stuff. He was doing data management for a little while, and he's kind of since transitioned into the bookkeeping piece. But he actually had zero bookkeeping experience. So he has no accounting foundation, had never taken any courses, doesn't have a degree in accounting. Like he basically learned everything from, me teaching it to him and kind of bringing him into our system. So
I speak with a lot of real estate investors who would love to have a virtual assistant do bookkeeping for them, but they're so scared to trust someone else with their credit. Today I had a conversation with an investor who said, I want my VA to do bookkeeping, but I'm so scared. He recently hired, she's doing email management, she's doing calendar management, and eventually he would like her to do bookkeeping. He's like, I don't know if I can trust her just yet. Do you think your story is different because you knew that person well before you even trusted him with accounting, right? You had a way of testing his personality. You said he had the right attitude. He was doing jobs like below his knowledge and level, and he wouldn't complain, right? So in a way, that was a loyalty being built between the two of you. And do you feel like that's when you could feel comfortable delegating bookkeeping to him? Is that kind of what happened?
Probably. It might not have been something I actually thought about until you said it just now. But I mean, like anything, it's like, again, going back to a parent, like if you want to leave your kids with a babysitter, would you just leave them with someone you've never met? Or would you leave them with someone that that you've interviewed, that you've seen their qualifications, you've spoken with other people who, have used them as a babysitter? It's the same kind of concept. Like my business was my baby, so I was very protective of it. And so I totally understand, that hesitation of handing something that's so big and important off to, this virtual assistant. But at the end of the day, they're people. You're building that relationship to become comfortable. So you might not feel that on day one, okay, I'm ready and I can just give them access to all of my information. But I do think that building that relationship will totally help with that transition to be able to become more comfortable with it.
Yeah, this is exactly what the kind of conversation that I had with him. I said, hey, let her focus on email management, on calendar management for now, build a relationship, and then you will know how you can trust her. I would feel so confident trusting this type of tasks to my team, but I've had them for years, right? And I have team members from all over the world. I have people from the Philippines. I have people from Moldova, where I'm originally from, right? Like I have people from India. I have people from Pakistan. And I would trust them with this stuff, but they've been with me long term, and they have proven their loyalty to me. So I would say like start with something a little bit maybe smaller. See how they just warm up to each other, because, with VAs, sometimes they don't last very long in a company. They can get a better offer elsewhere and they can leave. They might have an emergency. They might disappear. You hear all these stories. It's impressive that you've had yours for years, and I've had mine for years, and our clients have their VAs for years as well, because it's so important to choose the right person. But even so, until you work together, you never actually know how good the relationship will be until you actually work together.
And I will say, before I found, the bookkeeper that, we're using now, who was our, working with us with other things, before him, we did have a different virtual assistant that was not a good fit. And, we tried to force it. We probably should have let her go sooner than we did, but we were really trying to work on building that relationship and establish kind of, the way we work together. And sometimes it's just not the right fit. It's like anybody, everyone's got different personalities, and you're coming from different cultures where you have, different expectations. And so sometimes it's just not the right fit. So, I think going through that, it's literally like any business owner. Like, those are the struggles that you hear about. It's just a matter of, if that one didn't work out, it doesn't mean that you write off all VAs. Like, you still can utilize them in your business to help you become much more, efficient, effective. And there are great VAs out there. It's just a matter of finding the ones that are right for your business and your team and the way, you guys work together. Because it's like a husband and wife. Not every husband and wife can work together. My husband and I, we work really well together. And we know what our strengths are, and we know where to kind of stay in our lanes. But, some people are like, oh my gosh, I could never work with my husband, or I could never work with my spouse. And it's like, yeah, well, not everyone is designed or has the personality for that. So when you understand that, you can better, set the expectation for how a VA can fit into your business, and,
that's right,
what to expect of them.
And what you said, don't rule out all VAs because you had a bad experience. I always say, like, don't let a bad experience burn you twice. It burned you once. Don't let that bad experience burn you a second time by keeping you from getting the best hire you could have had. So like, because of your previous bad experience, you feel hesitant to bring in maybe the person that's going to be a game changer for your company. So don't rule them all out. That's very well put here. I'm sure those who are listening, and especially if they're looking to get a virtual assistant bookkeeper, they will have this question: are there any tools? Is there any way to, in a way, protect our information, or give them restricted access maybe to a VA for certain tools? Like, I trust them, I know, but I would still feel much more comfortable knowing that I'm taking some measures. Is there something like that? Yeah,
absolutely. That exists with a lot of different, apps and websites, especially now. I mean, all of the banking we do, all of the credit cards we have, all of those different, websites we're on, you can set up access for a bookkeeper. So they, for example, like your bank account, you might not necessarily want them having access to your cash where they can, spend money and do things without your knowledge. But just because they have access to a bank statement doesn't mean that they, have access to your cash. So I think understanding that they're going to need access to what you probably feel is like more confidential information. Like, you don't want that getting out there. But like we were just talking about, building that trust, making sure that, like, at the end of the day, most people want to do well. They want a job where they can feel supported and that they can, be a part of a team, and they're not going to maliciously do things because you granted them access to something. I think at the end of the day, they're going to want to do well and continue to, have new opportunities working within your business. So I think, understanding that it's all about learning which which website allows which types of access. So if there's ones that you find, don't have certain functionality set up, then, creating workarounds. Maybe it's you share things through like a Google Drive or some other type of, shared folder where they have access to things that they need, but without necessarily access to a specific system. But I think that that's definitely a misconception that people have, is like they're just afraid of they're thinking of the worst case scenario, and it's like you're not walking your VA into a bank to say, here, have my bank account and drain my accounts.
That's right.
It's completely different.
Yeah, it is a fear people have, but there's good to know that there are measures in place that we can take. So I know QuickBooks actually has something that's called like a bookkeeper's access, right, or something like that. So you only have, am I wrong here? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but what do you see and what don't you see with that access?
Within QuickBooks, you can set up different user access. So yes, if you want a person to only be able to see this particular type of thing, like you don't want them to see the balances that are in your bank account, but you want to grant them access to be able to pay a bill, for example. Like we have, certain things set up. For example, our operations manager, she might pay bills for us through QuickBooks, but she doesn't have access to our reporting or our, bank statements. Like she doesn't have access to all of that stuff. So you can set it up for whatever that particular VA is needing to work on, for them to only have access to those particular role permissions. So that QuickBooks makes it easy. Like it tells you, you can check the box on exactly which pieces that they can or can't have access to.
And most softwares have the same functionality?
Yeah, a lot of softwares are going to have that. It's kind of like a standard thing nowadays where people understand that, if you have a business, then you have different roles and people don't need access to everything. Every single person in the business is not the owner, so they shouldn't have access to everything.
What about banks? Do banks have something like this where you can create different levels of access for different people? The reason, maybe give you a back story a little bit. So the entrepreneur I spoke with earlier today, he would like his VA to do some bookkeeping. He also has a rental portfolio, and he needs to pay mortgage for the properties every month. And now different banks, they have different systems. So sometimes he can share his password with a VA via a password sharing software, right? So you don't actually see the password, but it obscures it. Other banks don't accept that. You actually have to log in, with it. And so he was wondering if there was something that maybe on the bank side, if he can control that access.
I mean, every bank is going to be different, so I can only speak to the banks that I work with, but we have, the local bank we work with, they have basically a portal where you can create users the same way you can create users in QuickBooks, but you just need help with their, you just need help from their customer service in order to create those accounts. So I can't necessarily create it myself, but if I work with their customer service rep to say, hey, here's what I'm trying to set up, here's exactly what they need access to, then they will help create those user accesses. So I think a lot of banks now probably do have that. But of course, if you're working with a very, very small local bank where maybe they don't have a ton of functionality, like it might be a little bit more challenging to figure those things out, but they might not necessarily need access to your bank. If you can find a way to provide the bank statement and you set that bank up through your QuickBooks banking feed where those transactions are coming through the feed, then you might not necessarily need for them to be able to access that bank anyways. It's helpful to see, check images and to be able to see, different things if you're trying to figure out, get clarification on a certain transaction or something like that, but they can still operate without, the complete access to that bank. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out, which ones do, which ones don't. And that might be something that an entrepreneur might consider switching banks. Maybe they go to their other local networking events and they ask people there, who are you using for banking? Why or why not? Because, we all have the same problems. So if you find out from other people, oh yes, this is a great local bank and they have an awesome online portal. Like that's all I wanted. I wanted something with an online portal because it makes it easy for us with, our employees being virtual, that's what we needed for our business. Whereas some people might not care and they might, enjoy going to the bank and not having to do everything online. But
yeah, but not a lot of entrepreneurs have a lot of time on their hands. Actually, that's the number one reason why entrepreneurs are looking to hire, is because they need to reclaim some of their time back so they can focus on bigger things, right? They can focus on getting the next rental, negotiating with the sellers, and networking, building relationships, right? Not going to the bank. So it's a good thing to hear that there are some measures in place now, and they just call the bank, talk to customer support, and like you said, if the bank can do what they need, look for one that will do it, because there is this possibility out there.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very good to know. Okay, so now let's talk about your more bookkeeping experience. I know you have a course on bookkeeping, and just tell us a little bit about how it's structured. Is it primarily for flippers? Is it for wholesalers? Is it for people who have rentals? Like, how did you structure that?
Yeah, so the way it's structured is basically there's a main accounting basics course, which is going to go over foundational concepts. It's the things that you need to understand regardless of whether you're a wholesaler, a flipper, a rental property owner. Like you just need that base foundation. So there's that main course, and then there's specific courses for your niche. So if you are just wholesaling, then you would take that accounting basics course and then you would take the wholesaling course. Or if you're a flipper, you would take the accounting basics course and then you would take the flipping course. There's also, the way it's structured is a lot of investors do a little bit of everything, which is what we did in the beginning. We had our rentals and then we started with wholesaling a little bit. We were doing a flip here and there. And so I know a lot of investors do a little bit of everything. So there is a way that you can, bundle and save getting all of those courses together. But you would still work them the same way. You would take that accounting basics course and then, start with wholesaling, flipping, and rental properties.
Mm-hmm. So does it focus on any specific softwares, or does it show you how to record transactions? Like what does it do?
Yeah, so it's all QuickBooks based. That I'm a QuickBooks Pro advisor. I love the system. I think it can work for any real estate investing business, regardless of your size or, how you operate. Maybe if you're a much bigger company, you'd probably look at, more robust software. But for small business owners, like QuickBooks will give you everything you need. So it's all QuickBooks focused and it will take you through everything. So it's real life transactions, settlement statements. When you purchase a property, when you sell a property, here's what it looks like. The course has, templates and spreadsheets and all sorts of different resources that you can use to basically, if you were to decide to have a VA help, that you could, share those resources with them as well. So it's really just designed to give you everything you would need. And I created it to solve the problem that I had. So when I was first getting started, I knew what needed to be done, but we grew very quickly and didn't have a process in place or a system. And it got a little bit chaotic and overwhelming, as I'm sure, a lot of investors can relate to. So I basically just created something that I could have used in the beginning that I know would have just completely changed the game for me. I wish it had existed, because it probably would have saved me a lot of time and headaches. But, I built it based on what my personal experience was. And,
So is this course beginner friendly? Is it for beginners? Is it for someone who already has some background in bookkeeping?
It's for complete beginners. So as I mentioned, I was a preschool teacher, so it is taught at a very basic level for anybody to understand. So I actually had a student, she was not necessarily a real estate investor, but she was an assistant to a real estate investor. And he basically was like, hey, can you take this course for me and help, figure out my books, and she was from the pharmaceutical industry, like had zero real estate knowledge and zero accounting knowledge. And she took the course and was like, I actually like understood it. I'm like, that's amazing, because you didn't have real estate experience either. So I do recommend people have at least like the real estate knowledge, because I think, like what is wholesaling? I'm not going to go over that in the course. The course is going to be, if you already understand and know what wholesaling is, here's how you record these transactions. Here's, what you need to look for on the settlement statement and things like that. But yes, it's very beginner friendly. It's designed to basically take someone who has zero accounting knowledge and to give them that confidence to be able to say, okay, I get it. I know what needs to be done. And here's how I apply it to my actual business.
That's amazing. So the entrepreneurs can do it themselves, or they can also get a virtual assistant, like you mentioned, right? And most of the VAs that we hire, we usually hire people who have experience, so they know about QuickBooks, they know about real estate, but maybe the information they have is not exactly what you need, because the accounting rules are different in their countries than they are here in the States, or maybe the previous company they worked with didn't record the transactions right. So it's so important to have a person who knows bookkeeping, who knows real estate, but who can also do it right. And because you are a real estate investor yourself and a CPA, like this is like the best combination. Like it doesn't get better than that. Like and a former, you said, preschool teacher, so you know how to explain it in a way that is simple, and in a way that you needed that for your real estate business. So this is very, very useful. If entrepreneurs don't want to use their time and they would rather focus on doing what they're doing, they can easily get a VA and just bring them up to speed with your course and make sure they're on the right track, and they will, make all the transactions look good, right? I guess that's what they say, right? Make transactions look good. Make accurate, I guess.
Yeah, right? Accurate and complete. That's all we care about.
Accurate and complete. Okay. Now, what kind of person do you think would be, do they have to be very detail-oriented to be a good bookkeeper? What personality traits do they need to have?
Detail-oriented and just the willingness to learn, because, especially even if someone has bookkeeping experience, bookkeeping and bookkeeping for real estate are two very different things. And I found that a lot with working with different students and different clients. Like, I've seen that they said, hey, I hired a bookkeeper, like my stuff is fine. And then they start taking my course and they're like, this doesn't look like what they're doing in my books. Like, this it looks wrong, and something's off. And so, but they did what they thought they were supposed to do. They hired the bookkeeper, they did what people tell you to do, but they didn't hire a bookkeeper who understood real estate. So accounting for real estate and accounting for, some other type of small business are two very different beasts. And same with, accounting for flippers and accounting for rental property owners are also two very different things. So if you don't know that or understand that, and a lot of bookkeepers don't, because they don't have that experience, it's like, I'm a CPA, but they didn't teach me while I was in college how to account for real estate investing. You learn the concepts and then you take those concepts and apply them. But it's not something that's, taught when you go become a bookkeeper. So I think that's the biggest thing, is making sure that if you are outsourcing to someone, or if you do decide to hire someone else, to do them, like, I think that it's important to understand it yourself so that you know what you're hiring out. I would never outsource something to someone that I didn't understand myself, because how are you supposed to make sure they're doing it correctly? How do you make sure that, you're paying for what the service that they're supposed to be providing? And I think I don't know why, but I feel like a lot of investors just will outsource the bookkeeping to someone else with no knowledge. They're like, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Everything's taken care of. And it's like, well, are you looking at your financial statements? Are you making sure that, what are you using them for? Because a bookkeeper isn't just for tax purposes, which I think a lot of people also have that misconception of like, oh, I just need to worry about this once a year. It's like, if you're a business owner, you should be caring about those a lot more frequently than just, at the end of the year.
Absolutely. And I will leave a link to your to the courses here in the description so people can find it. And I think you also have a free course, right? Tell us a little bit about that. What does that entail?
Yeah, so I have a free mini course, and it's designed if you literally have no clue where to start. You're just like, I don't know, this whole accounting thing just seems too overwhelming. I don't know if I'm supposed to do it, if I'm supposed to hire someone. Like, I don't know any of these things. It's really just designed to help you think through the different pieces, which software is the right software for me, or when do I need to hire someone? Should I hire somebody? So it really takes you through like that piece. And it's more just to help you, decide where you want to start. So it's a free course, and it's designed for anybody who just really wants to know where the first step is. So
I will leave the link to that as well. Have you ever seen what happens when people ignore their books?
Yes, bad things happen. So if you ignore your books, if you ever decide to stop ignoring them, then you will have a big, huge mess to clean up. So whether you're doing it or you hire someone else, you're going to get hit with a giant bill, because if you're ignoring them, then you have nothing, to show for them.
Do you have any stories, any of your students? Why do people usually come to you and take this course? Just so they do it right, or do they get burned before?
I've seen that I have students of all different sorts. So some students come to me and they don't have an accounting system, don't know where to start. They just need that hand holding to, walk through the process. I have also had clients where one of my favorite ones is actually a student who took my course, and they had hired a bookkeeper, but they basically wanted to start doing the books themselves. They were like, I just feel like it's not a good fit. I don't know what they're doing or not doing, and I just want to, take control of it. But they wanted to learn it because they, didn't know what the bookkeeper was doing or not doing. So once they started getting into the course, they started looking into their own books, and they were like, these are just not right. Like, they're not recording anything correctly. Like, you couldn't follow what they were doing or not doing. None of the banking feeds were set up. It was a big old mess. And so he was like, I realized that, this was all done incorrectly. And he's like, I don't even know if I should start over or where to begin. So that was one of my one-on-one clients that I helped with cleaning up his entire books. Now, he's on a path of clarity, completeness, accuracy, all of those things. And now he can, take them over to be able to just continue on that path forward and not have to pay a bookkeeper anymore. So it's, it's designed the course was built for people who don't know where to begin and haven't quite done anything yet. However, like in that example, he did have a bookkeeper and he discovered a problem. So had he not taken the course, that problem would have been a whole lot bigger if he discovered it, 2 years from now. So
help me understand, real quick, what does it mean when you said it's a big mess, it's a big problem? What exactly does that mean? If there's a problem, I'm not a bookkeeper, right? And I took some accounting courses in college, but I'm not a bookkeeper. But what does that mean? Do you pay more in taxes? Are you not as profitable as you can be? What does it realistically mean for the bottom line?
Your tax liability might be something completely different, because if they're not recording things correctly, then you're hitting different accounts. So, and this is something I mentioned earlier, the way you account for a flip versus the way you account for a rental property, those are two completely different types of transactions. And if you don't know and understand that, and you record them all the same, those are completely wrong. So when I'm referring to big mess, it's just you're looking at stuff and you're like, this is wrong. I don't know where to begin, And if you've done a ton of transactions where there's a whole lot to look through, then it's kind of like if you look at the financial statements, say you look at, a profit and loss statement and there's a huge negative and you're like, this doesn't make sense. Why is there a huge negative? I've made a ton of money. My flips have been very profitable. I've looked at them, on a per property basis. Like, what's going on? Like, why is this negative? Well, the way that those transactions are getting recorded might be the reason why it shows as a negative. Maybe they need to make certain adjusting entries to make those financial statements accurate. The other big thing is like, a lot of investors might feel like they're making a bunch of money. They're like, I feel like business is doing well. My profit and loss statement says that I made, $100,000, but my cash account, my bank account only has 20 grand in it. How did I make 100 grand and my bank account says 20? Well, if you have a balance sheet, you can look at that balance sheet to see, oh, here's why, here's where all of my other money is sitting. Maybe it's sitting in different escrow accounts, or, it's in earnest money deposits on different properties that are in your pipeline. Like, you have a full picture to look at. And I think a lot of people, they don't understand that. How am I making all this money, but I don't see the money in my bank account? And real estate investing is just, that's the nature of the business. There's huge swings, ins and outs all the time, and for different things.
Yeah, this is something that happens a lot. I actually hear people saying all the time, like, I made money. I can't show, I don't know where my money went. Where's the money, right? Where did the money go? And so having accurate books and budget and understanding where the money is, it's very liberating, right? Because you know exactly what to do. So actually what helped us, I don't know if you're familiar with this system, Profit First. I don't know if you use it, but this is
I don't use it, but I've heard really great things about it.
Yeah, this is something that we actually struggled with. I was like, I know we made money in the company. Where is all of that? Because I'm looking at my bank account. I'm like, we don't go on a shopping sprees, or I don't like to spend that much money. We don't go out to eat that often, so where did the money go? So we actually started implementing this, and we like it because it's like you have an account for everything. You have an operating expense, and every time you have money coming into the company, it automatically just percentage wise, it gets put into different accounts. So it really helps with I'm paying the team out of my operating expenses. If that's low, that's an issue, like what's happening, right? And then we have something for profit or for our income. So we know that we don't touch that, and we have something separate for taxes. So when it's tax season, we're not completely shocked and we don't have the money to pay, to pay the taxes. And so it's been a system that's been really good for us. And I was just wondering if you know that. But but real estate is also great for taxes, right? You have a lot of benefits. Oh,
absolutely. And the only way you can take advantage of those benefits is if you have financial statements. So a lot of times, investors will be like, I talked to my CPA and they weren't able to help me. And it's like, well, what did you provide that CPA to look at? Because if you can't just send your CPA your bank statements and your settlement statements and, your mortgage statements and here's all my statements and expect them to give you advice on how to lower your tax liability. They need to see financials to look at. They need to be able to say, okay, here's where things, here's where all of your money is going. Okay, you have these rental properties. Maybe we look into, cost segregation analysis, or maybe we look into different ways of doing things to help lower that liability. But if you don't have that for them, there's nothing for them to look at. And I think a lot of times people are like, I don't even know what I'm paying my CPA for. And it's like, well, what are you providing them for them to be able to provide you advice? Because they can't help you if they're putting together your financials for you. That's the bookkeeping piece. That's making sure that you're doing those, on an ongoing basis. And that way, it's not just at the end of the year, talking to them to figure out how you can reduce it. They can actually come up with tax strategy for you. So if you have financials in Q1 or Q2 that you can provide to them, then they would be able to look at it and say, oh, okay, here's where you're trending. Maybe, you try to buy another rental property for this, or maybe you try to hold off completing that flip too soon and make sure it sells, in the following year. They might help you with strategy to come up with ways to lower it. But again, they can't help with that if there's nothing for them to consider.
Yeah, 100%. We actually work with someone who's been great for us with the taxes, and they ask a lot of the financial statements. I like the fact that they actually tell us what they need. It's like, help me help you, right? So yes. I need this, I need that. So that's very useful. Now, you mentioned this course is primarily for small businesses. Now, my question would be, as a small business, you have a limited budget. I know QuickBooks, you have to pay a monthly fee. Why would somebody have to use a software like QuickBooks or something similar rather than doing everything in Excel? Is there a reason for that?
Honestly, time freedom. How much time do you want to spend digging around in Excel? How accurate is your Excel? What are you actually doing to make sure that everything is accounted for? Like that, the system will do that for you. So, when you're doing reconciliations to make sure that every single transaction that came through your bank statement is in your accounting system, the system helps you do that so quickly. Whereas if you were doing that in Excel, you would have to go through one by one, line item at a time, to make sure this was accounted for here, this was accounted for here. And you can do that. It's a personal preference. Like if someone is like, what, I have 3 rental properties and this is all I want and I'm perfectly happy, doing this in Excel, keep doing it. You need to do what's best for your business, and the only person who understands what's best for someone's business is the business owner. They understand the ins and outs of everything they're doing. So for me, I love QuickBooks because I know that regardless of how many properties we purchase in a year, regardless of any of that stuff, like it's equipped to be able to take on that, extra data. So it just makes it so simple, and it's an accounting software first, which is why I love it too. So a lot of these other softwares, they're not accounting systems. They're systems that were built for real estate investors to make accounting simple, but it doesn't have all the functionality that a true accounting system has. So instead, I take the approach of learn the accounting basics that you need to understand in order to use the accounting system, because that's what's going to give you the most accurate and complete financial statements.
I love it. Great advice. So if somebody listening to this says, oh man, my books are such a mess, what should they go with first? Should they educate themselves first? Should they get QuickBooks? What would be the first thing where should they start?
That answer is going to be different depending on what their personal situation is. But I would say the first thing is, if you feel like your books are a mess, the first thing is deciding, are you going to fix them, or are you going to hire someone to fix them? Or are you going to fix them at all? Are you just going to keep digging deeper? I don't recommend that. But knowing that if you do hire someone to fix it, if it is a big mess, it is going to be very expensive. So, it is what it is. So if you do want to take it on yourself, the biggest thing is going to be educating yourself on how to fix it. And just like any big project, you take it one step at a time. So, if you're doing it yourself, I would say the easiest way to start is, 1, educating yourself so that you know exactly what you need to be doing. And then doing it one property at a time. Look at what was recorded for one specific property, fix it. See what was recorded for the next one, fix it. And you'll eventually, start to realize, if I do a little bit every day, you can fix them yourself for a lot cheaper than hiring it out. But, you might not have the time for that. And maybe you have the money that you're like, you know what, I would rather someone else fix this for me. Just making sure that you find someone who isn't going to make a bigger mess. So someone who understands how to clean it up, who understands the real estate industry and can help with your specific thing. Don't find that person who's like, oh yeah, I can figure this out, no problem. You don't want them. You want the person who's already cleaned up everyone else's books and knows exactly what they're doing, and they're not trying to learn as they go.
This is so common for virtual assistants. I feel like a lot of VAs, they try to especially from certain countries, they want to please the entrepreneurs, the CEOs, the managers. They care so much about the work they do that they don't feel comfortable saying no. So if somebody asks you, hey, can you fix my books? He's like, oh yeah, I got this, right? Or I'll do this for you. In reality, they know nothing about this. So because I work with virtual assistants, I tell them, guys, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like nobody expects you to be good at absolutely everything. And no one will think badly of you if you say you're good at something, but not good at something else. We can't ask a fish to climb a tree, right? Like if you have your genius zone, you got to stay in your genius zone. But like what you said, when you hire someone, make sure they actually know. They don't just say, oh yeah, I'll figure it out. And they might just say it, especially if you hire a VA, they might say it just to not to make themselves look bad in front of you. Like they really want to please you.
Oh, absolutely. They're people pleasers, and they think that they truly can figure it out. And maybe they can, but at what cost? How much time?
Exactly. So hire someone who's done it before, hire someone who knows real estate, who has experience in bookkeeping. Even if it's a virtual assistant, there are a lot of virtual assistants out there who have the experience in both. And just this course, again, will show them how to tweak certain things, maybe because they were taught wrong previously, or just for whatever reason, right? So this is a good way to so you do it by yourself at first, but then you outsource it to someone, and you have a way of controlling and knowing what to expect of them because you've already have that experience and you've gone through this education yourself. And now you can get this off your plate confidently, knowing that someone will take care of the books at a level that you would have done yourself. This is what I'm getting from. Okay. Yeah, this is very good.
Absolutely. Peace of mind is everything. Like if you know that it's being done correctly because you understand what should be being done, then you can sleep a whole lot better at night.
For sure. Nelisa, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your services, about the course? What's the best way to get in contact?
People can go to my website, seeds.courses, if they want to check out the different courses, learn more about, me. You can fill out the contact information on there. I also am on social media, so Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. You can connect with me in any of the ways. I will respond. So I am behind all of those accounts. So any way people, prefer to reach out, I'm available.
I like the name of the course, Seeds. Like this is what's the story behind it? How did you come up with that?
So our home buying business is actually called Evergreen. So I knew I wanted something in the family of plants and trees and that kind of feel. And seeds just felt right. It resonates with just planting seeds for your financial future, for, investing. It's perfect. As soon as I heard it, I was like, that's it. That's the one.
It's really, really good. From a marketing point of view, just like I see the connection. I just wanted to know if there's a story, but I see the connection. What a great name, such a fitting name for that. So it's awesome. I'm going to leave the links, everything in the description where people can find you, people find out more about VAs, people find out about the courses, everything. So if anybody's listening or watching us on YouTube, they can easily find that information. Nelisa, thank you so much for being on today. We uncovered so many great great questions. We talked about a lot of important things. Now I feel comfortable that whenever I speak with a real estate investor who says, I'm not sure if my VA can do this, I will direct them to this episode and be like, watch this, because this is something that I think will really help you. So thank you so much for coming on today and for bringing a lot of clarity on what a lot of real estate investors looking to outsource, a lot of them worry about this stuff. So really appreciate your time and appreciate your knowledge and being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad that we could make the time to put this together.
For anyone else at home, don't forget to subscribe to this show and give us a like, leave us a comment, tell us what you think about this, and let us know what else you want to hear or what other topics are on your mind. When it comes to outsourcing, to growing your company, scaling your company, growing your team, we would love to come here in front of you and give you the answers you're looking for. So let us know what you need. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.